What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the Marvel Rivals creator contract situation, which is definitely a few days old, and it honestly has kind of gotten resolved, but I never got a chance to talk about it. And you know me with my big mouth. I want to just throw my hat in the arena and talk about what's going on, or at least what did happen over the last couple days. So, Marvel Rivals had kind of its first step of being out there. I've seen a little bit of it, and it doesn't look bad. My opinion for Rivals, as really since they announced it, it's just really not a game for me. I'm really not into those games. Will I try it? Yes. Was I invited, or did I get a code to get into it? No, but when it comes out for all and it comes out as a free-to-play game, I definitely want to check it out. I highly doubt it's a game that I'm going to be playing for, hundreds of hours, but I've said it again since they announced it, I do want to try it out, and I just want to throw that out there just in case people are confused, especially as this video goes along, with where I stand on it. And again, even from what I've seen since it kind of dropped, right, released, we can call it, kind of in a light version, right? It doesn't look half bad, and there's a lot of positive things being said about it. Now, I actually think just generally there are positive things being said about it. I think people have genuinely positive thoughts. Maybe not everybody, but some people, right? The thing we're here to talk about was something that blew up, I believe, over the weekend, where it was basically revealed that a whole bunch of creators, right, that got to get into this thing, when they signed their contract, and I assume many of them did not look at it, which, hey, do I always read the fine print? I try to, but maybe sometimes it slips by me. This is why you do it, though, by the way, right? It actually talks about basically not saying a single negative thing. You cannot say a single negative thing about the game. And it's actually pretty funny. The picture we're going to look at, and this was the tweet I think that actually blew up, in terms of, okay, what is this agreement? The content creator agrees not to make any public statements or engage in discussions that are detrimental to the reputation of the game. This includes, but is not limited to, making disparaging or satirical comments about any game-related material, such as game features, characters, or music, and then B, as engaging in malicious comparisons with competitors or belittling the gameplay or differences of Marvel Rivals, or providing subjective negative reviews of the game. Now, there's other things. I don't know if I can find. If I can find it, I'll put it into the video. But they kind of give examples of this new hip lingo that is honestly just some of the stupidest stuff, stuff out. I'm sorry. That's just kind of what I think about it. Where it's examples of hey, here's some of the words and even some of the comparisons. I think an Overwatch clone in quotations. That's one of them, right? Where you literally cannot utter the words, "Hey, this is a clone of Overwatch." Oh, you said it, right? So you can't do any of that. And there's a long list. There's maybe 10, 15 things on the list, at least that I saw, right? But here's what I'll say, okay? Making a review just to hate on it, or the belittling things. Well, number one, people should be able to do what they want, generally. I do understand. If you're given a code into this thing, right, and you look at the situation, you think of the situation, they are going out of their way to hand out codes, okay? That's just a simple fact. They're going out of the way. They're giving you codes to their game. They want you to try it out. Obviously, they're going to want positivity. And we can talk about that for review codes. You can talk about that for preview events. And we have actually talked about those kind of sensitive topics that a lot of people I don't think actually will talk about. We've talked about them. So I do understand part of it. You do want positivity. You're giving these things out in the hopes that it's not just going to be word of mouth, but it'll be positive word of mouth. So all of that I understand, right? But at the same time, I am pretty big on not limiting what somebody can say. So if they want to make a joke, let's just even take the first part. It's the last sentence that makes me really mad, right? Literally saying you can't say anything negative. But even the parts before it, I think are trying to get at, don't make these massive, over-exaggerated claims about the game. Well, number one, if somebody wants to compare it to Overwatch, they should be able to compare it to Overwatch. In fact, and here's something that is actually very important for this entire thing, telling somebody you cannot say that this game is an Overwatch clone kind of makes me feel like, and again, this is somebody who's kind of outside it, does that mean you're afraid of people saying it? Because is it true? I don't know. I think maybe I fired up Overwatch one time in my life and I haven't played Rivals, right? But when you tell somebody not to say something about your game, literal quotations, well, does that mean you think that that is what this game is and you don't want people to say the quiet part out loud? How else are you supposed to read it? That's where I really think they messed up here. Beyond everything else, or above everything else, telling people not to say certain things literally makes me think that that is what the game is supposed to be. Also, it really hurts the creators as well, right? Because it's like, okay, well, you see something, I mentioned in the beginning, some people I think had genuinely good things to say, and this is again somebody who's not in it, so I guess I get the courtesy or like the joy of not being a part of like the drama, right? But say I did get it, or say anybody gets it, even if you believe the person, even if they're say a creator you like, how much do you trust it after reading? Now, again, maybe some people didn't read the fine print. Some people didn't even know this was in there, right? So people were getting banned over the weekend, or I think maybe on Friday. People were just kicked out of this content creator program just because. And they at the time, it was just because they didn't know the reasoning why, right? Now that we all know, but again, that puts the creators in a bad spot because it's like, okay, well, you might trust X creator, but like, and he might actually say positive things. He might actually believe positive things about the game. But because you're not allowed to say negative things, how much do you trust the person saying Wouldn't you want the ability, and this is, I think, very obvious, right? Wouldn't you want the ability for creators to say whatever they want about the game? And then that way, if you hear positive things, and maybe a few negatives, but you hear overall positives, you say that's what the person actually thinks. Honestly, that's what I try to do. I've never been told, like, hey, you have to do this or have to do that. If I say overwhelmingly positive, you guys know it's overwhelmingly positive. I can say negatives, and I wouldn't do it if I wasn't allowed to say negatives. Right now, again, a lot of people didn't read it. I wasn't even part of it, but that is like an extra wrinkle to it, right? I feel bad for the creators because I think that kind of thing is definitely fair because it's like, well, how do I know how to trust some of these people? Do you actually think that way? Or do you, especially some of the bigger ones, like the really big ones, you would hope they read the fine print. So then it's like, okay, well, now you're being told as a big creator, you're not allowed to say anything negative. And okay, well, now how do I know if you're telling the truth or not, right? So it's a messy situation. But that really, I think, tackles at least that first part of it, right? I understand, like, you don't want these massive over-exaggerations, and it is a courtesy to give codes out in the first place. So I could understand that to a degree. Ultimately, I think if somebody wants to make a funny joke of a comparison or whatever, as long as they're not putting anybody in harm. That's how I look. If you're not putting the developers in harm, no threats, no attacks, like, in the sense of like, hey, here's their address, here's it. No, none of that stuff, right? You don't want to be doing that steps over a line. As long as you're not doing that, though, I mean, if you say a part of the game is bad, you say a part of the game is bad. What's the big deal? You're not really hurting any individual person, right? But it's that last part, it's that last sentence. That is despicable. That is what really set me off. I tweeted about it, and it just is like, are you serious? So, again, while I mentioned there's a lot of things in quotations, that last sentence flat out is telling you subjective. Subjective is like your own opinion. So you're saying that you are not allowed to make a negative review. You can't say negative things about the game, period. Even if it's your own opinion on it, which, I mean, that's literally what subjective is. I mean, you can be maybe manipulated. You can have a biasness, or you could have this, you can have that. It's your own opinion that you kind of form on the fly, or you have, previously, whatever. It's your opinion. You can't have any negative opinion on the game. Are you nuts? So that is unbelievable. And I feel like these things used to be a little bit more like prevalent. I think it hasn't really for a very long time. Otherwise, it would have been called out. And, rightfully so, this was called out, and I do believe they fixed it. But that does, I feel, and I don't think it's this way for everybody, but I feel like that does very much long-term harm. Like, how am I supposed to, like, we mentioned the creators earlier. How about the company? How about, like, well, how do I trust that you're really in it for the right reasons? Or how do I trust just your communication skills or your respect for people or whatever it might be? The word trust, how do I trust you anymore? Because the first, off the jump, like literally the first thing you do is you tell people they can't say anything negative about the first iteration of this game releasing. Imagine the base game. When the base game releases, what the heck would they have snuck into a contract there? And this was called out. If it wasn't called out, it would have gone worse, I think, or it would have been maybe like there would have been something that happened, like enacted, right? They would have done something if somebody broke this. Well, they did. They actually banned people. So I guess it would have maybe even got worse. Maybe they would have sued them or whatever. That's not okay. Like, how do you just move on past that? I am a forgive and forget kind of, I really am. Like, I jump off things, as you can maybe tell from my rants. Like, I jump off things pretty quickly and all that stuff. But how do you let that go? I personally can't. Like, will I try the game out? I said I was going to try the game maybe a day or two, try it out, see if it's fun. But I mean, like, that's not behavior that you reward. And I get, maybe I should think, have a second thought about, trying out this game in the first place, because that kind of behavior needs to be, like, there needs to be actions taken where this kind of stuff never happens again. And I certainly wouldn't trust them to do it, right? Like, hopefully it's a learning lesson to other publishers saying, hey, never pull this card. Never tell people they can't say anything negative. Like that should be pretty obvious, because again, there's all these ripple effects and there's a lot of trust that is lost, not just with the company, but with creators and with, journalists or whatever. Like, that's one part of it. But then also, just to tell people you can't say anything negative, well, again, it feels like you're hiding something. Again, if you tell somebody to do something, their natural instinct is to not do it. If you tell somebody to not do something, their natural instinct is to do it. It's always the opposite, right? You tell somebody they can't say something, maybe they're going to say it, but now you have to ask yourself the added question, well, why would they say it? Why would they say the gameplay is like this? Why would they say the visuals look like that? Why would they say this is a little Overwatch feel? Why would they say things like that? Is it true? Because now that you put that in this contract, I feel like it's all true. Otherwise, why would you have done it? Why would you be so afraid of something? This is maybe how I feel at the end of the day. Why would you be afraid of something if it doesn't matter, if it's not even applicable to your situation? If you feel in your heart that the game is not an Overwatch clone, why would you be so afraid of people saying it's an Overwatch clone? It wouldn't matter, because it's not. You could say, clearly this game is not an Overwatch clone. But telling people they can't say it, well, do you think it is? Because it actually might be now. And again, I'm trying to take some steps back. Like, I don't know the full picture. I don't know the full game. And that's okay. But that's the mentality. That's what happens when you tell people these things, right? Kind of the opposite thing happens. So let me know what you guys think about the whole situation in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.